Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and welcome to our new lecture in prose course. In this video, we're going to do the following. First, discuss the terms of telling and showing, discuss your last assignment about the foil character, and finally, review Frankenstein novel. Let's start by discussing what is meant by showing and telling. Suppose that you are not feeling well and your friend asks you, "What's going on?" You reply to her, "I'm stressed." This is one answer to reply, "I'm stressed" or "I'm feeling stress." There is another possible answer, which is, "I am very tired. I have a lot of homework that I have to do. I have an assignment which I have not submitted yet, and next week I'm having a quiz. My head is about to explode from the things that I had to do which I have not done yet, etc." So if you notice, the first answer was short and precise, but the second possible answer was, let's say, or has a lot of details, that describes the whole situation. So while the first is short, the second has a lot of description and more details. This is simply the difference between showing and telling. Showing versus telling is one of the ways we can make our writing style more effective. It's much better to show details in your writing in a lively way rather than simply telling them. Create a vision for your reader so he or she can see what you are seeing in your writing, which means that the more you use details, the more you use description of your writing, the more you make your writing a lively image for the reader, so this vision can be seen by the reader. So let's discuss this example. Let's read this sample about a slice of life in New York City. The streets are clogged with people running amok in all directions, navy suits with leather briefcases, dreadlocks and baggy pants, underdressed in the threadbare jackets unzipped. Muggles seem to be unaware of those around them as they hustle past cafes, bookstore, office buildings on their way to their private destination. Elbows, purses, and body checks all are a part of getting to work early in the morning in Manhattan. If you notice, the writer here talk about every detail in the city, about the people, the places, even the details of those people, what are they wearing, or everything around him. Now let's compare the previous description with this short description. New York is a busy city. New York is a busy city. Here, the writer summarized all the situation with just like precise sentence. In this case, we call this telling. Telling, just making things small and precise. New York is a busy city. But if I want the reader to have a journey, a mental journey to New York, to have a vivid image, I will use this description so he can travel with these images and descriptions. Let's discuss this example from a story called Innocence Lost. In the years since the disaster, tales of heroism at sea during the terrifying hours of the storm have become legends along the bay. Stories of fathers slashing sons to masts at the height of the squall in altruistic efforts to save their children. Stories of daring rescues of one fishing crew in a swamped fishing vessel by another in almost equal peril. Stories of men throwing lunches fouled by incoming salt water overboard and using the emptied cans and often futile attempts to bail their foundering raft. As you notice here again, the writer describes the situation in details, taking the reader to a journey as if he really experiences the reader, as if the reader is really experiences these events. On the other hand, had the author, which means if the author stopped at tales of heroism have become legends along the bay. Stop. She or he, she because the writer is like a female, she would have simply told, which means telling, not showing. By showing the reader about those tales of heroism, he or she has a vivid picture about those tales, as if he or she is really seeing these events. The reader and the writer are seeing the same thing. Let's discuss other examples. In telling, one may say Jack's leg was sore, but in showing, Jack's face was crumpled in pain. He kept tugging at his leg, trying to find a prick from the relentless, gnawing ache. So we see that there is a difference between telling and showing. Another example, the teacher was angry. In showing, we say Mrs. Pompey stormed into the classroom, red-faced, marched to the front of the room, spun around her on her heels, and stared at us with her steely, dark eyes. So here we make things more vivid and lively. Okay, here are some advices how to write in showing, not telling. Okay, the first thing is to write naturally, then to use more strong nouns and verbs. Avoid too many adjectives. Adjectives are more used in telling, not showing, and also adverbs. And focus instead on descriptive, vivid nouns and verbs. Also avoid overstating, like by being realistic. And here, avoid using qualifiers such as little, nice, very, too. So try to focus on the nouns and the verbs. The last thing I'm going to ask to you as the coming assignment is to choose one of these sentences and change them from telling to showing. Change them from telling to showing. Now I'm going to discuss with you your last assignment about the foil character. And before I start the discussing, I just want to remember you that foil means a character which is usually minor, not main, that contradicts another character, either the protagonist or another character. Again, a character which contrasts another character, and usually foil is not a main character. In Arabic, I said last time, بالأضداد تبادل الأشياء، يعني شخصية عكس شخصية. Even though there could be an overlapping between them، يعني حتى ممكن يكون في بعض النقاط في تشابه ولكن يكون في اختلاف. كيف يعني تشابه؟ مثلا if we start discussing Clerval and Frankenstein. there is some shared things among them or between them. كان في بعض النقاط المتشابهة بينهم like their love for knowledge, reading. They were both of them they were knowledgeable, etc. Right? But Clever was يعني هي if we start a close friend of Victor in background and intellectual interest يعني both of them have the same intellectual interest, right? But is the intellectual interest the same? No. First, Victor wants to have education beyond the limits of a human, wants to achieve the unachievable, wants to give life to immaterial things. But Clerval was more realistic, كان واقعي أكتر من Frankenstein. This is one point. Another thing is that Clerval possesses a better moral compass and considerably less arrogant. He was the one who nurses Frankenstein when he was ill after creating his creature. He was very kind to him, right? But Frankenstein ignored his family more than one time. When he wanted to create the creature, he just centered about himself and hers and his study, and he forget to contact with his family. And even though after he creates his creature, Elizabeth was or sent to him a lot of messages, but he did not reply or have not replied till he received the death or the letter which tells him that William is or has been died. So these are the differences between the two characters. Now let's talk about Victor and Elizabeth. They are foil character, right? Why? The first thing is that we can say she is gentle and loving and lacks Victor's ambition, right? But is more superior to him by being compassionate. Like she's more compassionate. She keeps sending to him letters when he went to university. كانت دايما ترسله وتطمن عليه. Where he's self-centered about his like his, let's say, education and the thing he wants to do, which is creating or giving life to immaterial things. This is a very important point. While Victor is the cause of the monster's crimes, Elizabeth is the monster's victim. See how the contradiction is? Elizabeth loves the world as it exists. She does not want to change the world. While Victor tries to change the world, Victor is active, Elizabeth is passive. And if you remember, we talk about the roles of women in the novel. Most of them were passive. Elizabeth, Justin, etc. Most of them, the roles were passive. Now let's talk about the two professors in which or whom Victor dealt with. There were two professors. The first one is Cramp, who is condensing and unsupportive of Frankenstein's devotion to philosophers such as Agrippa and Paracelsus here, stating, "Every instant that you have wasted on those books is utterly and entirely lost. You have burdened your memory with exploited systems and useless names." يعني بعد ما قضى ساعات أيام هو بيقرأ بيحكي له كل دقيقة قضيتها بهذه الكتب على الفاضي، شغلك كله على الفاضي، فأحبطه كتير. Waldman, the other professor, acts the exact opposite. He's much more appreciative of Frankenstein's devotion to the subject and interest in the history of it. Because of the mutual dislike between Cramp and Frankenstein, Victor begins to spend more time under the instruction of Waldman. He chooses to study with Waldman because he was more kind to him. And Wildman's interest in the subject is then what sparks Frankenstein's desire to create such a monster. So Krim and Waldman's contrasting personalities were what led Frankenstein to choose a side، يعني ياخد جانب لو يختار مين Waldman، which in the end led to the creation of Frankenstein's monster. Now let's talk about the creature and Frankenstein. While Victor is selfish and disregards his family and friends of his work, the creature is selfless and helps the Jealousy family and saves a young girl's life. So the creature is seen by society as grotesque يعني إشي بينفروا منه, even though he is compassionate, like he's like a child who is born without knowing or having his parents. But Victor is accepted by society when his actions are grotesque. While the creature only desires to be a part of society, he wants to have a company. He wants to have like a friend to whom he can talk. Victor constantly avoids society. He is self-centered about himself and about his education. So the last thing is Frankenstein and Robert, or Robert Walton, if you remember him at the first 4 letters. Like Victor, Robert is driving to explore the world. He was very ambitious, like Victor. Like the minister is utterly alone and friendless. At the first, he was really friendless. He was searching for a company. It's almost as if he's the metaphorical link between the two. But Robert is not exactly like Victor either. While Victor's explorative tendency leads him to self-destruction and death, the death of Justin and his brother, and finally his wife, Walton chooses to cut short his search for knowledge in favor of life. Now this is the difference. Now there are some short points, there is a short point between Frankenstein and Robert, which is what? The ambition. Both of them want to discover new things, right? Frankenstein keep on, but Robert stop in favor of life. So again, this is a very important sentence. Walton chooses to cut short his search for knowledge in favor of life, both his and his crew's. But Victor, he sacrifices his entire circle of loved ones for the greater good, first of science and later of humanity. The last thing we're going to do is talking or summarizing the main events in Frankenstein novel. And by the way, this summary does not replace or is not let's say a way for not giving me your summary. بمعنى أنا راح هنا نلخص كل الرواية ولكن مطلوب منا موضوع السمري لأنه chapters فيها more details, okay? But this is like the main points of the plot in the novel. So again, you have to provide me with a summary of the rest chapters. So let's start by the first 4 letters in the novel. When Captain Walton journeys to the North Pole because he wants to discover new things. Captain Walton discovers Dr. Victor Frankenstein trapped in the ice. The captain brings Victor's aboard the ship. Dr. Frankenstein tells the captain the story of his creator. And here there is a shift in the narration. The first narrator in the first four letters was was Robert Walton, right? And here there is a shift in the narration because it shifts to Victor Frankenstein telling his story. Victor Frankenstein is born in Italy to a wealthy family. When he was 5 years old, his parents adopted a girl and named her Elizabeth. She has fair skin and golden hair. Victor and Elizabeth are best friends. They grew up in Switzerland at the foot of the Alps. They are good friends with a boy named Henry. At 17 years old, Victor goes to the university. He studies the human body and hopes to create life. Victor visits graveyards to get spare body parts. He wants to know how life is given to human because he wants to give life to immaterial things. Dr. Victor Frankenstein puts the body parts together. He zaps the creature with electricity to bring him to life. The monster is so ugly. His skin is yellow, his lips are black, his teeth are white, and his eyes are red. Victor becomes sick with hate. He was very afraid of his frame and his shape. He's so sick that his friend Henry takes care of Victor for several months. Clerval was very kind to Victor. Victor receives a sad letter from home. His brother William has been killed. When Dr. Frankenstein goes home, he sees the creature in the woods. He knows that the monster has killed his brother. Justin, the maid, is found with William's locket. Even though she did not murder him, the maid confesses. Justin is found guilty and is put to death. Victor hates the monster for killing his brother and wants revenge. He travels to France. Victor climbs to the top of Mount Havert to talk to God. The monster surprises Victor there. The monster then tells his side of the story. Victor wants to kill the monster, but the monsters obliged Victor to listen to his story. And here we have the third narrator, who is the monster, and we have the second shift here because the mic is shifted to the monster, who is going to tell his own story. And this is what is called again frame story. Story inside a story. Frame story, which means story inside a story. Now, the monster is the speaker. I'm good and full of love. He's talking about himself as if he's really a child who was born homeless, without parents, without anyone who takes care of him. Only suffering makes me do bad things. Like in nature أنا بالأصل منيح بيحكي له, but being lonely And suffering is or are the things that made me do bad things. After I was born, I was hungry, thirsty, and in pain. Everyone was horrified when they saw me. I found a cabin where I could hide and watch the family who lived
Over
here.
and beyond.
And a young man and a young woman. The family was very poor. They were kind. I liked to help them. I learned by watching and listening to them. I was happy when I learned how to speak. Then I could tell them how good I really was. I read a book and found out how I was created. I was very angry at my creator, Dr. Frankenstein, because he made me so ugly. He does not like the way he is. I finally decided to talk to the family in the cabin. They got scared and attacked me. I hate myself. I hate all men. I went to Switzerland. I saw a young boy and wanted to be his friend. He was scared of me, too. He said his father, Dr. Frankenstein, would punish me. I was so mad I strangled the boy. I took his leg and hid it with the sleeping girl with Justin in the barn. طبعا سمع انه اسم ابو فرانكنشتاين فقرر يقتله. Doctor, now again the speaker is the monster. If only I had a friend I would be happy, which means that he really misses a company. He wants a company to share his feelings with. Feelings with. Then I will not do these awful things. Dr. Frankenstein says he will make a bride for the minister. And the minister, who is the one who firstly asked Dr. Frankenstein to make him a bride. Victor Frankenstein goes to England with Hurley to study. Victor works in the bride but is very nervous about it. Do you know why he is nervous about it? He thinks that in one minister there were many crimes and death. What will the case be if I create a wife to him and after that they will have children? So there will be more and more disasters and crimes, death, etc. The doctor decides he does not want the minister and his bride to have children. Dr. Frankenstein destroys his bride creation before it's done. The minister sees his bride destroyed and vows revenge. Victor is sick with grief. The minister has killed his friend. Victor goes to Ireland to see Henry. The doctor finds out Henry has been murdered. When the doctor gets better, he goes home to Switzerland. Victor then marries Elizabeth. And don't forget that Elizabeth is not his real sister. She is an adopted sister. And this is why he got married to her.
Victor
and Elizabeth honeymoon in Italy. There is a bad storm. Elizabeth goes to bed. Before I continue, notice how nature is connected with the events. When there is a storm, it may foreshadows that there are some bad things which are about to happen. Elizabeth goes to bed. Victor fears that the minister has followed them. He leaves the house searching for the minister. The minister strangles Elizabeth. Elizabeth dies. Dr. Frankenstein is heartbroken. He goes to an insane asylum. This time when the doctor gets better, he vows to find the minister and kill him. Victor chases the minister to the North Pole. Dr. Frankenstein meets Captain Walton on the ship and tells him the whole story. Then Victor dies. The captain meets the minister when the minister climbs into the ship. The captain hates the minister for the awful things the minister has done. But the minister hates himself even more. The minister runs away into the darkness to hide forever.
The end.
And this is the end of the novel.